one of your poems from Fifth World Drum. And, okay. This is Biggish Worm, aka Anna Marie Sewell, entitled this "The March This Time," Ottawa, February 13th, 2003.
Can we stop quick? Just
Yeah.
one quick second.
You need to go.
The March This Time, Ottawa, February 13th, 2003. The policeman I saw at the embassy gazed tenderly at the dancing ones, chanting ones, the shouters and the puppet men, and the many, many more who simply walked in witness, walked with the same intent that wound around the world, tenderly gazed at us. Afterwards in Tim Hortons, the cold we carried in our thighs rose up and laid a mist on all the windows we leaned against. Far too many people for the seating, a nation united this time for peace and coffee. The march this time for peace between nations. One day we may walk for the greater peace needed between humans and the world of other fellow creatures with their many tender gazes. It's a true story.
Well, we'll share with you and then open it up for our collective conversation. Here's one of the universal Cree philosophers. One word, protest. One sentence. Again, they did not have the title of the poem, nor of the book, nor of the poet, nor the page number, nothing, just the words. One sentence. I want to run when the light flashes stop. I want to dash when I reach a stop sign. Signs everywhere to stop me. Here's another universal Cree philosopher. One word, protest. One sentence, united, we will march on. One paragraph, there's power when a lot of people agree and demonstrate their unity. Having a group come together demonstrates the strength of voices being heard. Stream of consciousness. Within a group of a lot of supporters, good things happen. There's always strength in numbers. Even the policeman who's there for riot control seems to agree on whatever cause this march was for, by gazing tenderly at the people. I'll interject my own comment. I must confess, Biggish Worm, I haven't seen a whole lot of gazing tenderly from...
Who has? But that's why I was with the poem.
Okay. Well, here's another universal Cree philosopher. One word, reconciliation. Stream of consciousness. Makes me think the person is writing about the Truth and Reconciliation March they had in Edmonton, I believe, in April. It was cold and emotional. Many, many natives, the most I had seen at once in any place other than a powwow or the gathering of nations in New Mexico. I liked how they put Tim Hortons on there because it is like a place of comfort to many, regardless of race or status. In fact, it's the exact place I went to after I went to the event or conference. Their tweet, their name for this, excuse me. This is, now we're with another universal Cree philosopher. They gave it a name and they titled this Sweet Surrender. Non-violent, peace-loving, calm, cool, collected coffee break. And I asked them to give their working definition of nation. Here's one. A nation is a country of diverse people who share the same beliefs, ideologies, political structure, and language. They identify with each other by sharing a common goal of unity and independence. Here's another universal Cree philosopher. One word, perspective. One sentence. Together, we can help one another. One paragraph. Everyone is affected. Like a ripple effect. Everyone has similar wounds, yet different stories. If we support one another, that is a way to heal the wound. Sounded like a rally. Their tweet, because they also wrote a tweet, walk with us that understand you. We will work and make it through this. Together, we will make it. I title this Nation United for Coffee. Invite you to come.
I love people's thought that this is about the truth and reconciliation, because it could be. It really could be. This is, so when February of 2003, I was in Ottawa for work, actually, and the protest that was going on was against our involvement in Afghanistan, against going over there and shooting up wedding parties and, villages and stuff in order to free the people. And it's interesting how much that has to do with what goes on here too, right? It's always the same thing. Do you decide to get together with people or be against them? And I just have to say, I want to write a companion piece to that poem, because when I hear someone read it, or when I read it, or when I look at it, I always remember, gosh, I left out one of the best things in that poem. And that's where the march happened, and it was Parliament Hill. So we started at Parliament Hill, and we went around and we came back. And we went past the American Embassy. You guys seen the American Embassy in Ottawa? No? No? Okay, you know Darth Vader? It's like somebody chopped off his head and stuck it on the ground. It's like this giant Darth Vader head. It's a scary freaking piece of architecture. And I think, oh, you can tell so much about what people are up to by their architecture. And here's freaking Darth Vader's head looking towards Parliament. And the march had to go by there, and I kind of was looking at all the people, and those are mostly people who are living in Ottawa, right? And I'm just visiting, so it's fun to be the outsider and try and identify the organizers and try and see like who's been in on this from the beginning, who's just coming out for it. Not that I was very good at that, but that's why I really noticed this policeman, and he was watching the embassy kind of and looking out for the people. And I watched what was going on, and I actually stopped and talked to him, because I thought, that's not what I expected. I expected he'd be there for riot control. And I felt I had to go up to him and say, hey, I feel like I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking care of us. And he said, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. He said, I'm here to take care of you guys, because I know this is a controversial thing. And he himself was a veteran. And he didn't want to get big into his opinions about that, but my dad was a veteran too, and he was overseas as a peacekeeper though, so even at that there's a lot of controversy about that, but their job was to go in when they're asked, right, by the countries involved, and to keep the peace. That's different from becoming a nation supporting an invasion of a sovereign nation, and I'm being filmed saying this, but it's a controversial thing that was done there. And that was what the protest was about. People were saying, now hold on a minute, when did we move from peacekeeping to trying to intervene in a war? When did that happen? And I didn't have an answer for that, so I went to go and listen to people talking about that, because I thought that we kind of need to know what we're doing as a nation in the world. We're a fairly small nation, really, and I kind of like the idea of us as peacekeepers in the world. Kind of like being able to say that's what we do, and the army goes out when Winnipeg floods and and they put down the sandbags and they help the people, right? And they go out and try and keep the peace when somebody's had a ceasefire. Isn't that what we do? And so I wasn't comfortable with the idea that we were going on a combat mission in support of... And a lot of people there were like that too. They're like, in support of what? What exactly is the issue here that means that Canada is supposed to be involved? And so it wasn't so much a protest as a questioning. That was kind of the spirit there that was going on there. And I just happened to be in town, so I thought, well, this is something to check out. It's an historic moment to see what happens. And I was really touched by that the policeman was with the protesters, looking out for them. And it was really clear to him that these are just peaceful people. This is a peaceful nation we have, and these people have a responsibility to ask this question. And he was sticking up for their responsibility and the fact that they might feel nervous about the fact that there's going to be some kind of anti-demonstration, you know, because some people, and they got a right to their opinion too, because that's their opinion, and it is a free country. They can just as likely say, well, then we should be doing this because we have a trade alliance with the States and we have a responsibility to, you know, uphold democracy, and that's what we're doing. So it was clear to some people that that's what that mission was about. But the people who were there that day, and myself among them, we weren't clear what that was all about and why we should be taking that step. And that's one of the fundamental things about living in Canada, is we should take part. We should question things. We should go get involved. You know, stand up and go ask, at the very least, what is going on, what is happening here. And I'd like to think that the police, I'd like to think that that would be a good role for police, to be the ones who keep the peace within our community, so we can do that. I know that the reality is a whole much more complicated ball of fish than that. But gee, I thought that was so special that guy was, you could see how much he loved all these people, and that he felt really proud of having been a veteran and now being a policeman and just helping to make peaceful spaces for people to talk about stuff.
What I find fascinating is that you saw that he loved the people. I'm not even sure I would have gotten past the stereotype, the caricature that I have. That's really interesting. Well, here's another universal Cree philosopher. One word: protest. One sentence: human rights now, tomorrow the rights of all Earth's inhabitants. One paragraph: when Indigenous people march in solidarity, it is breathtaking and peaceful often. We have many more marches in us. It's a powerful statement. Stream of consciousness. Natives together for one cause. Human nature is good. Even some policemen. It is a system that does not afford this true human nature to rise. Instead, it values only its own bottom line. One day, as the poem says, this will have changed, and we can get on the page of the earth and all of her children, the animals and rocks, the winds and waters. It is a peaceful protest song. Their tweet: today we will save our relationship, then coffee, then tomorrow we will save the world. I title this, How to Save the World, Coffee Breaks Included. My working definition of nation is, a nation is a unified group, unified by language, culture, or a shared experience. A nation is sovereign of other nations, and as such is not subject to impositions of law other than the law of that sovereign nation. Would you like to respond, and then we'll open up for questions?
Well, I love that. Get on the page of the earth. It's like you could put it on a t-shirt.
We have people here going into that.
Well, there you go. There you go. Whoever wrote that, if they don't mind you using it, that's a good one. Like, get on the page of the earth. I think people will go, what are you talking about? And then they'll walk around, yeah, that's right, we need to, that's right. I'm gratified that people like it so much, and I found it so interesting. They said when Indigenous people march, because the people who were in that gathering, they were like all kinds. You really saw. I really saw the diversity of Canada. There was all colors, all denominations, all ages, and I thought, well, it's interesting that the idea that there's something to be talked about and something that they're not comfortable with in our national policy. It's interesting that that's cutting across lines of color and religion and race and age and economics, evidently. But it's also interesting we all went to Tim Hortons. Like, that cuts across too. That's so, that's all right. That's so good. Oh, sorry.
Questions. The only wrong question is the unasked question. And we've listened to a lot of music. This is, as Whitney Houston sang, one moment in time. We're not going to get this opportunity again, folks. So make the most of it. Whatever you never dared ask a poet, now is the time.
I'm more interested in hearing what everybody has to think. I'm more interested in what everybody had to say about their interpretation of your poem.
Okay, well, here's another universal Cree philosopher again, and really what we're looking at here is they're all reading from the same page, and every single one of them is bringing a new reading to it. Well, here's another one. One word, parade. This is the first time it's not protest, it's parade. One sentence, hope that there can be peace in the world. One paragraph, the environment is peaceful, and no matter what nationality, authority, or citizen you are, there is no conflict when everybody is there for one thing, coffee. We can all get along, just got to change the environment. Stream of consciousness. When I was young and growing up on the reserve, I didn't know too many people of a different race. It was my teachers who were non-native, though. And so seeing them every day made me realize that there were. I didn't understand racism till I grew old enough to understand politics. I learned about the war and hate crimes around the world. I heard stories of hate towards my own race. But today, I am not the hater towards everybody's race. And I'm glad for that. I see us all in one room having coffee in peace. Their tweet, a coffee at Tim's makes the world go round. Their name for this, a fresh cup of unity. My working definition of nation, a place where everybody who lives there is proud to be a part of and who helps to keep it safe and also make it better. A nation to me is my community and also my country. I invite you to riff on that.
Yeah, the one thing that there's a bunch of them, isn't there? Can I hear a couple more? Because there's something that happened this morning that reminded me there's something I have to say about this poem. I didn't know it was coming, so it's interesting that the radio has been offering me all these things that are relevant today. But I'd like to hear a couple more people's takes first, if you don't mind, just to see if somebody else tagged it.
Because of our limited time.
Oh, okay. Okay, here it is.
We're gonna get in.
Okay, here it is. Coffee. And I'm a coffee fiend. When I'm buying for at home, I try to buy organic fair trade. When I'm on the road to drink Timmy's, it's got to be Timmy's because it's the coffee of traveling, and you always know what you're going to get is good. So this morning I'm driving along, but I've got my home brew with me because I made too much. Forgot my mom's visiting Saskatchewan. There's too much coffee in the pot. I better take it along. And on the radio they're talking about fair trade. Does it work? Does it not work? Is trade a way to deal with poverty? and this whole fair trade labeling. And of course, they're talking about coffee growers. So it's interesting when you said, you know, we can all agree on coffee and it's all peaceful if we're having coffee. Oh yeah, that's right, it's peaceful here. But in the coffee producing lands is the same stuff, right? There's people being massively exploited and living really impoverished lives in order to produce cheap coffee. And that's a thing we've got to solve too, right? That's a thing we've all got to take on in some way. And I think Indigenous people are uniquely poised to do that because we drink so much coffee. And because we know what that is. You know, we don't know what that is so if there's some entrepreneur here who hasn't got an idea yet for what they're going to do.
Yeah, they do.
Fair trade farm to farm coffee for like Indigenous people to Indigenous people. I would so get behind that brand. You know, it could have like a little flying eagle with an espresso cup or something, you know, I don't know. But isn't that cool? Like, we call it like nation to nation, you know? I don't know.
Well, folks, it's time to hear from you. Questions, comments, observations. The only wrong question is the unasked question. Winterhop.
Okay, I kind of talked to you about this a little bit. What do you do with procrastination?
I try to put it off. You know what it is? I try to actually embrace it. And I used to feel it was like some kind of shortcoming, but now I say it's not ready yet. And when I say to the thing that I'm procrastinating doing, when I sort of put it out here and look at it and go, I know you think I'm running away from you, but I'm not running away from you. I see you there, and I'm just going to cook it in the back of my head a little bit more. And I give myself permission in that way to be looking at it while I do something else. It took me a long time to really recognize that. When I was at university, I didn't know what it was. But I would literally sit on the living room carpet and pick lint out by hand. I'd clean the whole carpet with my fingers rather than study, right? But gradually I realized that was, it could be a weakness, but it can also be a strength, because as a writer, if I do something like that, I try to find something to do that's meditative, walking or picking lint, or, you know, something that engages me physically but lets my mind kind of freewheel a bit, then I find that whatever it is that's stuck in there has an opportunity. And if it's really bugging me, I let it know. I say, you know, this is bugging me, I can't get to it. I'll put it here, and I'll put it here, and I'll just do something to get out of my own way. Because it's just you're getting in your way because you figure you got to have it all solved before you can even tackle it. That's what I find anyway. So I just go, okay, I'm not ready for it, but I'm working on it while I do this other thing.
Interesting, because I work a lot with visual artists as well. And sometimes they'll have a few canvases in the studio. They've got one, and they know it's like an itch. and they just got to wait till they can work out that itch and then finish off that canvas. But they know there's a waiting time. Questions, comments, observations, please.
Okay.
Good.
I'll ask you everything. I talked to you a little bit about this too. Okay, so I'm a writer, but I'm so uncomfortable saying that. So I guess that's the question, is the confidence. Like, I write, I've been told that I'm good, but I don't think I am. It's just writing. So how do you get past that? How do you get past that? Like, what do you do? Like, for me, I like writing. It's what I like to do. I've, just like you, like, ever since I was little, I wrote as soon as I could. And in junior high, I was swapping stories with teachers and my friends, and I'd write a page and I would give it to them and I'd say, okay, read the next page tomorrow. Like, I'd give them a deadline. Now I'm here today, and sometimes I just feel like maybe it's procrastination, but also maybe it's something else. Like, I don't know what it is. Why can't I just write? You know, I guess it's taking care of things, I don't know. To me, it's confidence. That's what my question is, like, how can I build my confidence in writing?
That's a good question.
Very good.
That's a real good question. The only way to be a writer, here's a profound piece of wisdom passed to me by the great Thomas Trofimuk, who the day I got my $100 advance for my first book of poetry, got a $100,000 advance for a novel. Like, I'm in the wrong business. But Tom says to me that his friend Gail, who's also my friend, says to him before he wrote his first book, said, Tom, if you're a writer, why the fuck aren't you writing? Just sit down and write. And you can tell yourself all kinds of stories about whether you share it or not. But the only way around the writing, sorry for swearing in front of your baby, is just to write. You know, so maybe one way around that is to say, I'm going to write this stuff. That doesn't mean I'm saying it's all going out there. That doesn't mean I'm saying I'm better than anybody or I'm this good or that good. It's in me to write, I'm going to write. Like, we don't worry about whether we're good enough to walk to the corner, right? If we're going to walk to the corner, we walk to the corner, right? We don't worry about if I'm good enough to sit and eat dinner. Maybe sometimes we do if it's a fancy occasion, but that's a whole other story, right? You know, if you're going to eat, you eat, right? You're going to feed somebody, you feed them. It helps to think of writing, it's the thing that comes through you. Get out of the way of the writing. Don't let yourself get in the way of it. Just sit and do it. There's a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron? Yeah. And that's got a good... Some of it's not something I was really finding so useful, but the one thing is the discipline of the morning pages. Get up every morning and you write your 3 pages. Even if it's crap, just write it. Even if all you're writing is, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to say, I can't possibly fill 3 pages with this nothing that I have to say. You make yourself write the 3 pages and pretty soon you find out that, oh, you know, it's just like anything else. You gotta demystify it. You know, as Wendy says, just demystify it. It's a thing that you do, so do it. We all are built to walk, to dance, to sing, to give voice to stories. So you're just doing what you're here to do. And it doesn't matter whether you're good or not. Really, just put that aside for later. Do it and let the work worry about whether it's good enough. It's coming to you. Who are you to tell it not to? There you go.
Yes, thank you. That's what dialogue is, asking these.
I think with writing, like when I was writing here, I don't consider myself a good writer, but I noticed I would write better when I had stream of consciousness. When it was more of the paragraph and the sentence and trying to complete that, that's when I couldn't really think about it. I was trying to create, but also devaluate at the same time. So that's when I, like, don't devaluate what you're trying to create at the same time. Do that later. Do the editing, your thoughts, and the reorganizing later.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good piece of advice. And it's true in anything you do, right? Generate it, then refine it. You know? You knock out the shape and then fix it up.
Get it out there.
Absolutely. Because then you can see it, you know, and that's not to say the craft doesn't matter, because I've heard people say that too, and I'm like, no, that's not what that is. It's the editing is an important part of the craft, but it is the next step, right? First the idea, figure out what you got to say, and then you apply the craft to it to knock it into shape. You know, in the craft of punctuation and word choice, and whether it's going to be a paragraph or a poem, all of that is just like picking the right tools for the house you're building. First you got to draw the house, right? And so you draft it out, draw the house. Okay, now what tools do I need to make sure that house is the shape I want it to be? And that's where the craft comes in. So just give yourself permission to draw the house. There. Good thought. Thank you, Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse! I was just thinking, okay, wait a minute. I'll try to remember. I'll remember. You are...
She's my shibboleth. I cannot pronounce her name.
Amioso.
Amioso. Omioso. I thought it was like, because I've lived around here long enough, I've heard that word. And so there you go. Thank you, Omioso.
Amazon has a question.
Hi. So I want to write a book myself. So do I just start writing and just go with it? Because I just keep like putting it off, and I just want to write. So yeah.
And it's, yeah, if you want to do it, you just do it. Which sounds pretty like Nike slogan-y.
Oh, well, we've been touching on that.
And let's not kid ourselves. When I say just do it, just write the book, I don't mean that in any kind of facile way. Don't kid yourself that you may have to train for this book, right? You might have to just like do little bits and little bits and little bits. Think of it like you want to walk across Canada. Well, the only way to do it is to walk. But in order to do it successfully, you gotta make sure you have good shoes and think about, well, how long is a pair of shoes gonna last me? So you're gonna train for a few weeks, right? Let me see, how many miles can I put on a typical pair of shoes? Okay, so do the math. How many shoes am I gonna need to get across Canada? How far can I go in a day? Well, let's get myself in, you have to train for it, right? Otherwise you end up like that poor woman from Toronto who went up Mount Everest and died. And she's not the only one. Hundreds of people up there are laying there dead on the mountains because they got the money. I'm going to climb Mount Everest. She trained for Mount Everest. This is why it was in the news, because she had trained by walking in Toronto. And she figured because she had put a backpack on and walked around the hills of Toronto, such as they are, that she was ready for Mount Everest. And because she had paid her money, despite the guide saying it's too late in the day, she had taken her video of herself in her tent with her big banner of climbing Everest, and she was going to do it. Just do it. But she wasn't ready and she died. You probably won't die of not being ready to write a book. The pen is not that dangerous. Although poets, here's a terrible statistic that I always shake my head. We have, as a profession, as a calling, we have a huge suicide rate. So, I don't know about that. Don't write poetry. Because I guess you could die of it. Not that I intend to. It's more fun to get old and curmudgeonly. I want to be one of those old ladies sitting there, on my porch just looking at people going, hey, what are they doing?
Right. Because I've read you all week. Go for it. Other questions, comments, observations? And I thank you, ladies, for getting the ball rolling. That's dialogue. Yes, Princess Goddess.
That's funny that you say poets, there's a high rate in suicide. Because, I kind of consider myself a poet. I've written some poems, and there's one that I wrote about suicide. And I wanted to share it with you.
Oh,
But it's not like about suicide, it's just more like about don't do it. Like my plea. And that's what it's called, my plea. Okay. Please don't go past the time. Slow down if you need to unwind. Go straight to your heart because that's where it starts, all that sadness you're feeling inside. Please tell me when you're not feeling strong so I can take you by your hands and hold on. Release all your sorrows into today, not tomorrow, and I promise you won't be sad for so long. Please know that eventually, even hopefully soon, that like a beautiful rose you will bloom. Open your eyes, let them see that life goes on, let it be, and that time will heal your wounds. And yeah, I just wanted to...
thank you very much, Princess.
That is beautiful. Can I be really cruel? I want you to say it again. I want you to say it again and savor it. Let us savor it. You said it so fast I missed half the words. And I know it's like, I know what that is, but that is a beautiful poem, and we all want to hear it real clear. So take your time. Take more time. We're not in a hurry here. We want to hear your beautiful words.
Okay, please don't go past the time. Slow down if you need to unwind. Go straight to your heart because that's where it starts all that sadness you're feeling inside. Please tell me when you're not feeling strong so I can take you by your hands and hold on. Release all your sorrows into today, not tomorrow, and I promise you won't be sad for so long. Please know that eventually, hopefully soon, that like a beautiful rose you will bloom. Open your eyes, let them see that life goes on, let it be, and that time will heal your wounds.
Thank you. Well, that was a wonderful initiative.
Yeah. Make wish for sharing that because there are so many people who need to hear that and who need to hear that. And don't be afraid to let your heart into that, to really embody that and really say that to us with all of your power because you have a real gift there, you know, but it's hard. That's a hard poem to present to people, right? It's hard to say to people that you know. In some ways it's easier to say it to people you don't know. To look at someone and go, take my hand and hold on, right? You're not invested in them in the same way. It's hardest of all to perform in front of your community and your family. One time I did a show and it was not well advertised, so we weren't having great numbers, but my mom happened to be in town. She came to every freaking show until I told her, Mom, stop coming to my show. You're making it hard for me. I'm just like, I'm so aware, because I can't, like, there's not a huge crowd, and I can see you. But she's being supportive, and I'm like, no, it's just getting harder and harder to do this, because it's my mom. And when I'm doing, I should have taken Mary's advice, take my glasses off, I can't see anybody. Oh, that's better. But yeah, take your time with that. Let yourself really say that. And find people you can do that with. Here's a couple other writers, and I bet you there's a few other in the room, to just practice saying that with its full power, because it'll make you cry, right? And I understand, like, it'll make you cry to say when you feel like you can't go on. When you personally know someone that poem is for, it's hard to say it. So I really commend you for saying that. And I would like to give you the gift that was given to me by my dad and various teachers, including the late great Walter Kaza, a beautiful, beautiful actor and teacher, who said, whatever you practice, this is what practice is for. You practice till you get to the point where you're giving the audience everything they need to get the message, but you're not giving them all of you. They should never feel afraid for you personally. Right? They should feel what you want them to feel, because you got to be comfortable enough with those words. And I encourage you, this is exactly the first step, to do it like this and keep doing it. I say keep doing it because it's so beautiful. Between the first time and the second time, your power and your comfort with it was so much. Didn't you guys notice that, right? Second time around, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I love this. I could feel how much you loved it, and you could tell how much we loved it. Keep doing it so that you get to the point where it will. And let yourself cry through it sometimes. You got friends you can cry through that with, so that when you come to give it to youth who need to hear that message, so when you come to give it to them, you're ready, your heart is strong. And you can hold them if they cry, because they're gonna, because that's good stuff. That's beautiful. Thank you. Well, yeah, we're all with you in that. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Observations?
Way to go, Winterhawk. You're on a roll.
You're kind of going where I was going to ask a question. Okay, so having said that, sometimes my writing pisses people off, especially my family. Like, and this is something little, like I've written more deeper stuff that I'll never read to them, but one thing I wrote on Facebook a few months ago, you know when it's a lazy Saturday and your husband's home and you're like under the covers and you're just like laying there and enjoying the, you know, sleeping in, the house is quiet and you're just enjoying each other's time. I wrote about that. I put it on Facebook, and I wrote something about, you know, touching each other under the covers. To me it was nothing, like it was just, you know, oh my God, I was getting phone calls, I was getting texts. My mom, my auntie started fighting, like, It just, aunties were fighting aunties, and it was like all this, people were commenting, and I was like, oh my God, I erased that whole bloody poem. Because it caused so much shit. Just because I said, touching each other under the covers. Like, like they couldn't handle it, they're gonna explode. And I think this is part of my problem, because I want to write, but I know, especially if it ever gets published, oh my God. You know, like, that residential school still has a big hold in our community. Like, don't tell, keep secrets, like, and that, it's like stifles my creativity. Because I want to talk, I have something to say. I want to talk. Like, I want to let it out free without, oh my God, and maybe it just needs to go there. But anyways, I wanted to ask you about that.
That is bad. Are you saying that the community censors you to all intents and purposes?
My family does.
Okay, that's such a key thing, right? And that's a key thing whether you're a writer or whatever you're doing, right? You're going to be in business. You're going to be in public view. And you're going to piss people off. And that's a great question to bring up, because we are communities that have so many triggers. What I would do with that is exactly what you just did. Tell it to the like-minded, the people that you're with, right? Because as you're saying that, I'm looking around the room, everyone's going, yeah, Everybody knows what that is. And you already just did something towards healing that by putting something beautiful out there, right? And you are not to blame for the fact that people are uncomfortable with it. But you have to, as a writer, be aware that you're going to trigger your audience, right? You have to know your audience. Facebook is particularly tricky for that, because I don't go on there because I think, I don't know. I hear so many stories about people reading stuff that wasn't intended for them to read and getting all, into all kind of trouble over that. You have to be aware when you put it out there. Anyone could read it and take it anyway. And this is for a writer. That's what the editing process and groups are for, to get you comfortable with whatever it is you have to say, so that you can go, yeah, someone's going to be triggered by this, I'm ready for it, right? And I've got my people behind me that I've talked to about this, and when I come crawling back all covered in welts and bleeding, they're going to go, it's okay. Right? Because they know that what my intent was, and because they helped me make my intent be realized as clearly as possible. I think that applies in all kinds of work that we do, right? You got to know, the only person who does it, what is that saying? The only guy who doesn't get criticized is the guy who never does anything. Yeah. Right? You're going to get criticized. You can't take on board other people's pain. And yet you do. And yet you do, because, you don't know. Here's a stupid story. I used to work with a group of students downtown. And they were a writing circle that I got parachuted into. They'd had a different facilitator, so they had been together for like a few years. They really knew each other. They had all their support system amongst themselves. And here's me not knowing all this. I'm coming in there. I'm going to teach them some exercise. We're going to do some stuff. And I'm only starting to get a grasp on this group and who knows who and what all their issues are, because they've got a lot of issues. They're really quite a volatile, emotional group. So it's about this time of year, a little earlier in the year, and I think, I'm going to make them write something uncontroversial. I say, hey, it's Mother's Day. Everyone's got a mother. Well, you'd think that would be a statement. Oh my God, I almost started a fist fight just by saying that. Right? Because one of them got really mad at me. How dare you say that? My mother died. I don't know that. I'm so sorry for you. And then the other one goes to her, how dare you yell at her? She doesn't know your mother's dead. And they're going at it like this. And, oh. I just wanted you to write something, I don't know. So you got to be prepared for these things that come out of the blue where you go, oops, boy, there you go. I didn't know that was going to be a trigger, because you don't know. And you just have to be ready for it. It's going to keep happening. And get a group around you who can support you, who can help you to reflect honestly on, is that what you meant to say? Or if you're in a different form of business, is that what you meant to do? Because if it's what you meant to do, then you can stand with it. You can say, no, I know what my intent was. Let me clarify my intent. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's what I'm trying to say. Do you need help accepting this? Do you need help dealing with this? And then you kind of help accept that that's the way it's going to be in our community. There's a lot of pain, a lot of pain. People got a lot of pain, and they'll throw it at you when you're doing something, and it's real hard not to take it personally. But you have to go, okay, I'm helping to heal this. I don't have to carry that around. I can help them understand that they're just that's their life that's gotten them to that place, and there's ways through that. We're all on the same team trying to get through it together, and that can be real hard. So, but it's really brave to do that. You know, me too. When you said they were touching each other under the covers, I'm like, oh no, you're gonna get in trouble for that. Holy cow! Right? Ooh, you're so brave.
Following up on that, Biggest Worm, part of what led me to this dialogic approach to education was precisely the realization that as a university professor, none of the students were speaking their mind. They only wanted to repeat what they thought the professor wanted to hear. And I realized I couldn't learn anything that way. If it's always surrounding myself with yes men, it's a non-growth situation for me. So then when you create a space, what I call a non-threatening educational environment, and people can actually say what they think, and you can get an honest answer, that I've mentioned this proverb before, iron sharpens iron. So following up on this, surround yourself with people who are going to sharpen you. And, you know, people that are going to keep you on your toes, that they're not just going to either jump on your case, or they're just going to keep, yes men. And when you have a community, because do you know, folks, how much you've sharpened me this week? How much I've learned from you that I could never learn in a textbook, never taking in a university course? You are iron. You're the iron. And you can do that for one another. You kept me on my toes. I got up at 3:15 this morning. I was at my desk working on this because I knew the quality of what you write. And respect means you take the time. The life unreflected is not worth living, Socrates said.
And they killed him for that. So you know they killed him for that, right? So you be careful, Whitney. Like, have this Kool-Aid. That's politics.
Comments, observations? We really appreciate opening it up like that.
I got a question for you. In terms of your self-promotion of what you do and how to go about that entire aspect of it, how can you, or what advice would you give the young entrepreneurs in here in terms of really elaborating or really doing that piece of their business?
I'll tell you something. That's one of the hardest things about being a writer, is to make, for me anyway, to make it clear to myself what I owe to the writing. Because I was raised to look at people who were self-promoting as assholes. Not to put too fine a point on it, but you know, it's like, that's not our cultural way to go out there and go, I'm the great Saldini, buy my thing, you know? And as an artist, what I've had to learn over the years getting crafty is that people take advantage of that. Oh, come and do your poetry for us for nothing. And I always think about my prof, right? The one, remember I was telling you, who wouldn't come out, and I'm like, you cheap bastard, we're your students. Like, I felt really offended and insulted that he was dismissing us as, if you don't have any money, I won't come out for you, when he was supposed to be our teacher. But I also, that really stuck in my head. So in a way, he was a good teacher, because he made me, he always, that little goad was running around in the back of my head going, but wait a minute, how many times do I get? And it's worse when you're Aboriginal, it's worse when you're a woman. Like, I just remember doing school workshops along with a young Aboriginal man. We'd come in and do these youth workshops, and one day, I realized they were paying him, but they weren't paying me. And I'm like, hey, wait a second. What? How come you're not paying me? And they're like, oh, no reason. I guess we'll pay you next time too. I'm like, thank you. Because people assume that you know, you do poetry because you love it. And I don't know who I got this wisdom from, but I got this wisdom somewhere along the way. Someone said, look at a plumber. You don't go to your plumber and go, but you love plumbing. You do it because you love it. I got a really beautiful thing you're going to love at my house. Right? We don't do that. You don't say to an architect, you know, hey, design me a house, you know, build me a house. Like, I can go to a construction boss, especially in Quebec, right? Go to a construction boss, they build me a house for free, yeah. Okay, I'll put you in the foundation, they'll say, right? Oh. I didn't really say that out loud. No, you know what I mean. People, you have to really think about what you have to give, not as being yourself. As an artist, that's really tricky, because, especially as a performing artist, which I largely still am, if I was building a house, I could look at a bunch of timbers and say, well, that one's straight, that one's bent, that one's too short, that one's too long. Okay, so, you know, pick out among them which one's good for which purpose. But if you're saying to a person, your voice is too quiet, your voice is too low, you know, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too old, you're too weird looking or whatever, it's harder to be objective about that. As a performer, you live by your reviews in a very personal sense. And I had to learn, and here's something that, this is the meat, that's a great question. The meat of it is, you have to keep yourself as yourself, and understand you're investing in a business, and that your writing, you have to look at it that way too. This is your business, this is your, and your business is your responsibility to the community to make something good that brings prosperity to the community. And when you look at it that way, when you think about the responsibility you have to the work, then you can get out of your own way again and go, no, I have to actually, for the sake of the work, I have to say, hey, I'm a professional, so this is my fee. In terms of promotion, I have to say, well, I'm an artist. I don't get out to things if people don't know about my work. And if I'm not spreading the word about my work, no one will know about my work. So I have to understand the difference between my work and me, right? And say, and not become a person who's always on the make, you know, where my work is me and I'm going to sell you me. I've heard people or read stuff where people talk about branding in that way. You are the brand, you know. Where I actually have had publicists sort of talk to me in that way as an artist. Well, we want to brand you. I'm like, oh, brand yourself. Brand my ass. I'm not for sale. My work is for sale. But I, personally, me, no. You know, I'm not out to become a celebrity. It does not matter a flying rat's ass what my favorite color is, you know, or what my favorite movie. No, that's not my work. That's stuff that we chat about as friends. But when we're talking about work, we're talking about work. And that's That's the key thing, I think, is to think about your work as your offering to the community, right? It's your offering to the community. It's your responsibility to take good care of that offering for the sake of your own soul and the sake of your community.
In that vein, I've mentioned over the course of the week a Coast Salish artist, Lawrence Paul Johuilipton, yeah, and one of my dialogue partners some years ago. And Lawrence Paul Johuilipton comes from a family, generations of elders in the Coast Salish nation. He is a remarkable artist. Again, I want to emphasize, look him up. His work is in Zurich, Switzerland, in Berlin, in London, Paris, Tokyo. This guy, he's brought native spirituality, technology, and the environment together in an artistic worldview that no one had encountered. And I mentioned to you, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology put his art on their homepage. That's how cutting edge he is. But he's quite a critic of what's happening to native artists and the community. In fact, he did an entire series called Hot Dogging. And the series is about all the native art out in BC done by native artists that is sold for a six-pack. And what this has done to the artist, what this has done to the community, and what it's done to the traditions of their own people. If you look at him, hot dogging. And I'm going to push the envelope a little farther here. He did another entire series. And this is why I consider the artists to be the prophet of today. By that I mean, when we think of prophecy, often in the popular mind, popular consciousness, the prophet is the one who foretells, predicts the future. That's not the primary understanding or role of a prophet. The prophet is a truth teller, the one who's on the outside looking in and bringing a critique to their people, to their community. Think of the Hebrew prophets in the Bible. It is...
I don't want to think about the Hebrew prophets in the Bible, because I think those fuckers fucked us over with this idea that you have to be the outsider looking in. You know what? It's easy to sit on the mountain and critique down there. The trick is to be down in the valley, to be in the city, to be among the community, and find a way to change things. I'm sorry to be contradictory, but I have to be contradictory on that point. You know, think of the idea of you guys know prophets, I'm sure of it in the community. There's always people, and they're not going off a lot of times. You have to stay involved. You have to live your life. You have to stay involved. One of the best prophets I ever heard tell of is a little old lady from Hawaii. I stayed with her granddaughter when I was out there. She had a big old house, and she had invited a bunch of people to stay on her lanai on her porch. It's about 20 of us staying there. So she gave me a film that had been made about her Auntie Ermengarde. And she is this little old mixed Hawaiian-German woman. The family was musicians. She wrote over 300 songs. And this is just her story. It's just a little documentary about her, sweet little documentary about her, and she talks so well from what I consider to be a really valuable perspective about she raised her family. She served the song, but she always kept her family in it. She didn't step outside of the community to do her work. She was very, very conscious of the fact that you have to balance your priorities. You have to choose. She said, sometimes I let it go. Sometimes I choose the song. Sometimes I let the song go. Because, you know, I've got a great song coming to me, but my kids need to be fed. And now who's going to do that? Me. And she's not bitter about it. She's very, very graceful and full of... and that's the difference between her and the Hebrew prophets. Those buggers tended to be really angry, you know, and they're always getting killed and stuff. Well, maybe it's because she had the right idea there. She let the truth go sometimes in order to serve the greater truth of your kids need to be fed. Great that you have this song to give us, but you got these kids and they're the song too. You know, and to not become so focused on your great prophecy, your great truth that you don't see the people that you're working with and you don't put a value on them too, right? So, I mean, she managed to write over 300 songs. She's like, oh yeah, sometimes I wake up from a dream with a song and I go, oh, I can't do that today. And she had to learn to trust and to let those moments go, trust that more would come, and then showing that respect to her big family with kind of joyful graciousness. They always showed it back to her. And they made space for her to do her thing without it becoming a confrontational thing. You know, it wasn't her and her gift against them. I say that to you and I think, gosh, I gotta work on that. I really gotta work on that. Because sometimes I'm a bitch when I'm working. I'm like, don't look at me, I'm working. I think that's probably the last time I should say that. Yep. There, thank you guys. I just learned something there. Thank you. Thank you.
Tokyo, Paris, who's that all?
Lawrence Paul Yohoilipton. And what I meant to